You want to know the term that's overused most?
What?
On every film shoot ever? Authenticity.
Authenticity.
We opened the door for authenticity, AKA so we didn't have to figure out how to hide the lights. And
We are authentic storytellers.
authentic storytelling. Authentic storytelling.
It needs to be organic.
I want it to be organic, but I also want it to be authentic.
Can you organically be authentic? Like if I had to go to Wegmans to buy authenticity off the shelf, is there like a non-organic
I would like store brand authentic.
store brand authentic?
I would like
That's what we are here at 45 Fathoms.
That's right, store brand authentic.
Why are we here? We're here because we couldn't brave the weather. And
Yes.
so we are at the Sandbar.
Thank you, Sandbar.
Thank you, Sandbar. Thank you, Sandbar. Jim McGinn.
In beautiful Canandaigua, New York. Come to the Sandbar.
At the lake house when it's warm.
They're not open right now, obviously.
Yeah.
But come here when it's warm, and it is actually a wonderful place to come and have a drink.
Cocktails, courtesy of the Rose Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important that we're showing Canandaigua Lake because 45 Fathoms has a tie to Canandaigua. You want to explain that?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
We were branching off from DS & Co. proper. We had a lot of very long lists. We wanted it to be natural. We wanted it to be true to sort of the story of the company overall. But we wanted it to be our own. We wanted to have a little edge and stuff too. So we looked at Canandaigua Lake right there, and we said, what about this is part of our story? And it's very much part of our story because it was literally pretty much born on Canandaigua Lake with Lauren Dixon, Mike Schwabel, you do the math, and then Canandaigua Lake is 45 fathoms deep. We said 45 fathoms, also fathom meaning to imagine, to sort of dream. Fathom apparently is a length of measurement, obviously, but it's the outstretched arms. So we outstretch our arms to authentic storytelling.
To authentic storytelling. And we like to give big hugs. And that was the kicker. Actually, funny enough, the townhouse that they lived in, where they started this company, was just over the little canal there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
A stone's throw.
A stone's
Road
throw.
over there.
Right over
about
there.
a driver if you're thinking about my golf game. So that's our name. It has purpose, it has meaning, which is kind of what we like our work to symbolize too. We get to shoot a lot of really cool things, but we always try to find that underlying insight, that layer of like the true purpose, the meaning behind our stories. I think that's something that really separates us from just the authentic storytellers out there. You can be production-y to be this for the sake of being a production. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, we're not that.
No, and I think that in an interesting and fairly relevant and timely example came to bear when the Rochester Airport asked us to do a commercial, just kind of open-ended, blank sheet of paper. We want a commercial. Okay, great. And so the first thing that everybody thought of was what you would expect. Planes taking off and stock footage of Cancun. And, you're in Rochester, so you want to get out of Rochester, especially this time of year. And that was the first 5 ideas, and then there were a lot more and better ideas because we decided instead of doing something that everybody else could do, why not make something that's specific to our client, specific to the area, especially for a client that's so important to the area, being the airport. And we came up with something that is, I think, much better if we can toot our own horn a little bit. And
toot.
Toot, toot.
Yeah.
Toot, toot. Josh put in the sound effect.
I want like a
tugboat. Like,
yeah. Could you change my toot toot to? Thank you.
Yeah. So getting out of that sort of generic, what are your 5 marketing terms? What is your authentic storytelling, TM? And getting into something that is both fun and also useful to the client, but something that they can own completely on their own.
It was like take a risk, do something that is going to be memorable. Avoid the cliches, like you've said.
Yeah.
And I think the other element of it is what you naturally did is you found something everybody could resonate with. Because it is such a wide audience that everybody uses the airport, hopefully, the Rochester Airport.
Rochester Airport.
And there's nuances there of the stress that you honed in on of traveling, and then also the travel experience, and like things always naturally go wrong.
Yep.
The spot was kind of founded on that. And then what we discovered through time and through like conversation through other people, whether it was our talent or people we were just sharing the opportunity of this project with, it all kind of, the light bulb clicked, and at one point you're like, well, yeah, the easiest part of travel is the actual airport.
In real life.
In real life, yeah.
To be very honest, yeah. Like the airlines might screw you over unless they want to be a client too. Then, maybe
then
not.
Delta.
Then Delta, they have your back. But, your kids will screw you over. Your family, they'll let you down every time. But who won't let you down is the Rochester airport. But that's true, because if anybody who's been to the airport knows, parking is easy, security is easy. You can budget an hour, but you're going to be at your gate in 5 minutes. And it's the thing that you can count on going well when everything else doesn't. And yeah, every casting call we had was a family being like, oh, this is exactly how it is when we're traveling. And it was like, great, that sounds like we got something.
So there's two things I really like about this project that I found unique, and something that people would be of interest, our audience, you would be very interested to learn more about, is like your process for storytelling. You definitely find and look for the ways for people to resonate with it. Even if the audience is very different and vast, it could be a long form story, or in this case, a 30-second spot, but you do a really good job of, and I don't know if there's just an aha moment that clicks every single time, or if you have like a standard process that you follow, but it shows in your work.
Oh.
I don't know if this is the secret sauce.
Well, thanks.
It's just Mr. Wayner being Mr. Wayner in your DNA, but what do you say to that?
Well, thanks, and I love you very much.
I love you very much.
So this is the most important thing I learned in grad school, and I'm going to do a shout out to Bruce Strong, who is the professor, and shout out to, I think he got it from an author, Cheers Bruce, author Donald Miller, I think he got it from, he said. The definition of a story is a character who wants something and has to overcome something to get it. So a character, a goal, an obstacle, aka conflict, and then some kind of resolution. Maybe they get the thing, maybe they don't get the thing, but if they're getting it, they've got to try really hard to get it, And showing that struggle naturally brings interest, and it naturally brings relatability. To go to another project that we've done recently, we interviewed a young man. The client is Western New York Works, and so a program that gives you training for a specific trade or field, as opposed to a 4-year liberal arts degree at a typical college. And this gentleman said, I grew up in really difficult circumstances. I was working 60 hours a week for very little money. I didn't really have a plan or a road, and I have kids. I wanted something better for them. So I did this program, and now I own my own business. I also work for this amazing company doing IT, and I'm doing more with my life than I ever could have dreamed. And that's a story, because if he had said, well, I don't know, I got a degree and then I applied for a job and then I got the job. I mean, that's true. That is kind of what happened, but it is the least interesting way to tell that story, because it leaves out all of the conflict and all of the struggle and all of the things that are relatable to anybody who's ever done anything.
I guess the next layer to that would be what we talk internally about as like the story arc behind it all, right? So there's different structures to how to tell a story, and it's not always a linear path. Right. You could show maybe the outcome or a sneak peek into potential challenging situation, and then bring that set audience to an earlier time in that talent's life or that person's character's life. And then kind of unfold the story that way. If we're giving advice to people, kind of not gatekeeping this, but is there a way that we try to find and pair up the best story arc with the story?
I think a lot of it is you start, and you're great at this, pre-interviews. Pre-interviews, getting sort of the rough story ahead of time, because something that we've noticed a lot, I think, is that you hear, and also somewhat overused, not as much anymore, but everybody has a story, you know, and that's true, but not everybody is very good at telling their own story, because we all tend to discount, like, well, I haven't done anything interesting. I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and now I'm here. And again, that is the least interesting way to tell a story, and it doesn't really do the story justice. So you start with this pre-interview where no cameras are rolling and you're just having a conversation, and they're telling you kind of this usually chronological way of telling their story, because that's how we all kind of think.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, that's great. Now we can see what are the elements of this story and how can we kind of bend that arc in the interview and in editing and in what we select for B-roll and things like that, to show that arc in the most interesting way possible and in the way that it deserves. And I'd ask you the same question. When you're coming up with like those nuts and bolts of like, okay, what are we shooting? Where are we shooting? How are we shooting it? Those are all very logistical things, but you still have to respect the story itself. So how do you do that as a producer?
Ooh, from a producer standpoint, I never want to force it. And anytime you feel like you're forcing a story, it falls really flat to me. I think audiences are so smart. And it's so easy to tell when something's forced or contrived or staged. And especially when you're telling like a real person's story, and they're not actors, and you're putting them in a situation where there's lights, there's cameras, there's strangers they don't really know. It's like, well, put them in their natural habitat or in an environment that they're most comfortable in, and then build layers of comfort, whether it's a familiar face, or you build opportunity for them to build relationships with the director, and try to limit their exposure to kind of the theatrics of a production so that they just can get into their own vibe. That's important for me when I'm selecting a location, amongst like, how fast can we get in there and shoot that? Like those logistical things are secondary. And I think that's a red flag if the logistics are the deciding factor for how you're telling your story. You got to pause. Because as soon as the logistics become the primary thing, you're sacrificing and you're compromising in not a good way how this story should be told. So I actually just wrote a blog about this and how strategic storytelling is really important. And the first red flag was, if you start to talk about your production, if you talk about it how you did it last year, that's number one flag. Well, last year we did it this way, so we're going to do it the same this year.
Right.
And then number two flag was, if logistics of like, well, what's the right date? What room should we be shooting in? What time is most convenient for their calendar? Those logistics, that's the second red flag. Start again. If those conversations start your video planning, you're on a really rough path to have like anything good.
You'll have an easy video, but it may not be very good.
It'll be awful. It'll be cliche. It'll be what's expected. And I think honing back to the airport thing is breaking through what's expected. Because there's so much, right? And breaking through the clutter is an overused term. But if your spot stands the test of time because it's expected of your category, your industry, your vertical, it's just white noise.
Right.
And I'm really excited for the opportunity, and that's actually honing back to the earlier conversation. The second thing I wanted to talk about for the airport thing was our client. And something that was really successful about that client, and this isn't just like me begging all of our future clients for this amount of trust and honesty.
But a little,
right? Okay, I would love it for every project, but
we wouldn't hate it.
Something that allowed us to do our best work was this incredible amount of trust into the creative process, and what we said was going to happen happened. What we planned for was going to happen. And it's not that we don't want clients to come to the table and collaborate and create ideas with us, because that we welcome to. That's how ideas get refined and polished and better and better. When you put them under some pressure sometimes, that's how diamonds are created, right? Cliche. But in this case, we could have thrown this idea in front of any client and they'd be like, it's a little too risky for me. It's a little too creative. Maybe way different than I've ever done. So I'm not comfortable with it. And that discomfort doesn't allow for innovation or evolution of a brand storytelling standpoint. So we had that. And at some points I'm like, hey, like we still, like, you're in on this, right? Like, because we had so much trust. I had to check in, and it was...
he didn't even come to the first shoot day. He was just like, yeah, you guys got it.
And he kept saying, and what I love about, Steve, you're the man. He'd say, this is why I hired you guys, because you guys are the experts. And if you can get to that point with your creative agency, your resources, and you can build that trust. It goes both ways. You have to earn it.
Yeah.
The agency has to earn that trust. Man, oh man, does that let them just have fun and be loose with the work? And it shows.
Yeah. When you get creative, there is inherent risk, because one of the things about let's just do it the way we did last year, the reason why a lot of people understandably want to do that is because it is safe, because it's a path you've already walked down. You know the terrain, you know what you're doing, you know where the challenges are, where the easy spots are, you've walked it 100 times, you know. If you decide to go on and blaze a new path, you have no idea where that stuff is. You don't know where the hard spots are, you don't know if you should trust the easy spots. It's tough. So when our client, when Steve was like, yeah, you guys got it, it was like, okay, then we really have to honor that trust and make sure that, if he's not coming to the shoot, then show him that he didn't have to come to the shoot. And we did. And that, and we wound up with a great product, and Steve loved it, which is great. That's kind of the whole point. But there is that point there where there is inherent risk, and that in turn makes us work all the harder to overcome that risk.
And the whole premise of 45 Fathoms being this extension of your team as your content video production department. And that isn't like a revolutionary thought, like people want that in their business, whether it's a hired entity within their house or they're hiring, they're accumulating resources and talent underneath their payroll, or in our case, we want to just truly be an extension of our team. And I think that's where, for the airport and for Western New York Works, to bring up these two examples, we truly are. We've integrated ourselves within their meetings and their trust and their process to listen, ask the right questions, understand what's important to them, and that's allowed us to, act and behave as a true extension of their team. Not just saying it because it's catchy and a marketing term that kind of, that's what I want.
That's great.
From a client's point of view. But truly, I think they're feeling the benefit of it. If they are on the table, I think they'd say the same thing.
I completely agree. I think that it's that level of comfort, that level of communication too, because if something's not working, we don't want it to be like, okay, we heard this after 4 weeks of pre-production and a week of shooting and 2 weeks of editing and all that. We want to have that conversation throughout, so that we can all fix it together, and it winds up to be something that we're proud of and something that they're proud of.
This is I do truly believe this is very special about us, and I think it's important. Our team can do it anyway, meaning if you look at the structure of the airport and what that shoot entailed, 2 full days, production crew of, I think we ended up with like 13 people. We had a car rig, we had a really cool heavy rigging dolly shots.
Look at the Instagram.
Look at here, insert the behind the scenes right here.
Click here.
The amount of production value in that, grip, gaffer, PA, the whole nine, right? Crew of 13, airport. Crew of 2, 3 for the first time, but sold through as a 2 and executed a 2-person crew for Western New York Works.
Right.
And the vast difference in which we can operate, we can scale up to be this, but we also can scale down to be this for you too, so that we are that extension.
Right.
We have that scale, that latitude to go where you need us to go for the right project. Everyone tries to spin a project and convey a reason to make it this big thing when it doesn't necessarily always need to be.
Right.
And that sometimes is at the detriment of what's best for the client.
Right.
And their budget, their needs, their goals for what they have for the year.
Exactly.
And so, I don't know, that's something I take a lot of pride in. That we can do both.
Yeah. And I think that's extremely reasonable, because with the smaller one that you mentioned, it's like, look, there's no reason to have this be a 13-person production, period. But also, we have 5 of these stories we want to tell. So that's not going to work for us to have an army driving down the thruway every time we want to tell a story.
Right.
Send us 2 people who can, and a great camera, and shoot this in a really kind of not gritty, because that's another industry term that's being overused, but kind of gritty running gun kind of way. And it tells the story just as well, and it tells the story. It's a fairly simple way to tell a story, but again, you don't have to over-egg the pudding. It's sometimes simple is fine.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Speaking of something fun, in the spirit of March Madness, let's do a production terms draft. So top 5 production terms that you hear on set, perhaps.
Yeah.
I wrote down a list. I'm prepared.
I just wrote down a list too.
Do you want 1-1 since I threw this on you?
Yeah.
Okay, you have 1-1 and then I'll go.
So I do 2. I do.
We're
one.
gonna go back and forth.
I do 1
You
to
do
start.
1.
I know a lot about drafting.
The number 1 overall pick in the production terms draft.
The number overall. My first pick is quiet on the set because it's the time during a production that I get to yell and release frustrations that may have been pent up, tensions. Not toward anyone in particular, but you're at work, frustrations happen, and I can just quiet on the set and like just blast that out, cleanse that out.
That's a good pick.
And yeah,
That's a good pick. And I think that's for our sound engineer. He loves that.
Yeah.
Cell phones off is a cousin too.
Yep.
Yeah. Whenever
Cell
you
phones
hear
off.
that, you don't want to be the person.
Don't do that.
Don't be that. Okay. So my 1-1 pick, it's a classic. It's action. I know it's cliche. I'm gonna go. It's more traditional probably
Sure,
with my draft
absolutely.
order. But action just sets the tone. Everybody. It's not a set until it's not a shoot. It's not a production until we hear action.
No, and if you say like, okay, go, everybody's a little disappointed.
It is.
Everybody's crestfallen.
Yes.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Say action.
Yep. All right. What's your second one?
I'm taking fix it in post. It is overused.
Take it from
It
me.
is what everybody
Yep.
says,
Yep.
and
Great
myself
pick.
included. I
Great
say it
pick.
100 times every shoot, and it always gets kind of a tepid laugh.
Yeah.
And it's like fix it in post. There's an obvious problem that'll take 5 minutes to fix. It would take our person after the fact 5 hours to fix. And the temptation is often just to barrel through it and make it his problem.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't do that.
Fix it in post, and we all kind of just like side eye the guy who actually has to fix it in post.
Yeah.
At first he laughs,
Right.
and then by like the 3rd or 4th time, his head's just down.
Yeah. Because we're serious.
Yeah.
Because
We're
this is
serious.
your problem.
We're
Ian.
actually. You said you could fix it, so that's on you. I'm gonna go round 2. Let's get a safety.
Let's get a safety.
That's
you.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is me. So
That's
let's
you.
get a safety. Let's make sure it's right.
Yeah.
Let's get a safety. Standard 2-2.
I'm going to do sort of very specific terms that people in production use to show that they are people in production.
Ooh.
That is very much
Yes.
you're
The
either in
lingo.
or
Yes.
you're out. And I'm always out because I did not go to film school,
Yeah,
and so
neither
I
did
don't
I.
know what they're talking
Yeah.
about when they say Hollywooding a light,
Ooh.
or a Dana dolly,
Yes.
or a cheese plate. Very disappointing. The first time I heard cheese plate mentioned on set,
Where's the crafty?
and there was no cheese, or pork chop, or one of our Bob's favorite, Spike the Camera.
Oh,
That one gets trotted out a lot.
these go over my head.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
time.
We didn't know.
No,
We didn't know.
no.
No. Okay, my 3rd pick. Call time.
Call time. When's call time?
When's call time?
Every shoot.
Why can't we just say, when does this start?
When should I get there?
When should I get there?
Call time
Call
is
time. I know there's a reason.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could Google it.
maybe
Your call time is.
right.
I say that to a client and they look at me like, what?
Oh, you don't know what call time is? No, it's Hollywood a light. You start Hollywooding at 8 a.m. It's call time.
Oh, that's my 3rd pick.
Yep. The word pan,
Oh,
because a pan is a pan is this. This is panning.
yes.
This is not panning. This is not panning. But if pan up, pan down, pan forward, pan back, pan, and pan diagonal. And it's used kind of as a bucket term for moving the camera in any direction at all.
Fact.
Usually incorrectly.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think that's a low-key pick that a lot of people, once they heard it, they realized I did that.
Yeah, I've done it.
Okay. Here's mine. Let's shoot it both ways.
Let's shoot it both
That's my 4th
ways.
pick. Let's shoot it both ways.
That's a great one.
We have a plan. We've been given this other idea or input. We can't make a decision.
No.
We're up against the clock. Let's shoot it both
Yeah,
ways.
let's just do both.
Yep.
Let's do 2 completely different things.
Yes.
Yeah. My final pick is that's great. Do it again. Or even better.
was on my
That's
list.
perfect. do it again.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Great direction.
Yeah. Don't change a thing. Just do it. Keep doing that 3 or 4 more times. Because why? I don't know. Because I like to have options in editing. Because, you know, I'll say that was perfect. And then when I get it onto a bigger screen, I'll see that there was, you know, a dog doing something that should have been in the background on that one take. Who can say?
Fair.
That's my final pick.
I'm going to wrap this draft up with another standard, traditional say and spell your name.
Say and spell
Say
your
and
last.
spell
Your first and
your
last
name.
name. Yeah, I love that.
And every single time, they're like, yeah, just say and spell it. That's all we need.
That's it. That's all you need to do.
That's a great way to start a shoot.
It's a great way to start a shoot.
I think you might have won.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there's any winners or losers.
That's a wrap. Yeah?
Yeah.
I get to say it this time.
You get to say it.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Nice job. All right, what else we need to do?